All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets for this Taco Tuesday. And with it being Taco Tuesday, it is profit day. Going to be showing you guys all the best props to pair with each taco that comes out today. But first, let's go ahead and get into a quick recap of yesterday. Guys, yesterday, another 50% day. Geez, it's been about 4 days in a row where we're just hitting above 50% by one or two picks on the day, which is like 51 or 52%. And then the last 2 days, 50%. So very frustrating there. For me, we know that just a little bit of a weird stretch. We look at yesterday, the minutes were kind of strange for a few of the props. The Pistons players didn't really get the minutes you would have expected. And then Jimmy Butler, which was the kind of free square on the slate and actually got better with Bam getting rolled out. Eric Spoelstra just decided I'm going to roll with this younger unit who was honestly just trying more. Jimmy Butler ends the day with 13 points on 29 minutes. As it is, we're always going to take the discount, and we can see we already have one. Julius Randle at 7.5 rebounds. That's going to be one that we are just going to be rolling with. Now, I do just kind of want to remind you guys as well, the Detroit OKC game was one that I told you guys to stack. And I know Duran didn't get there. I know Stewart didn't get there. But all the OKC players, if you had just like bet their over fantasy score, that would have been a pretty good slip for you. Looking at today, we only had 3 games on the slate today. We got the Knicks versus the Cavaliers, which a low scoring game there. 3.1 is the spread. And we go ahead and look at it, guys. We already got news that Jared Allen's out, and we already got news that Darius Garland is out. The biggest question mark is going to be Donovan Mitchell. Is he going to be out or not? But based off the news that we got, it does seem like Donovan Mitchell is going to play because he practiced on Monday. And with that being said, we can see the props that we have available on the slate. It's pretty much just Donovan Mitchell right now because he is expected to play. And I'm not exactly sure why we're not getting any other props for Cleveland just yet. I'll talk through it. And maybe it's just because he's questionable. They don't want to put out any other props that would leave them, I guess, a little bit too open to variance. Like if Mitchell was ruled out, then Karis LeVert, Evan Mobley, even Max Strus, those would be players that would get a huge bump. Now, if he's ruled active, obviously that would also change the lines, and you'd probably want to be fair in the unders there. So we're probably going to get Donovan Mitchell active, and if he does, I'll just read you guys off kind of the per 36 production there. So with Garland and also Jared Allen off the court, we do see Donovan Mitchell gets about 30 points per 36, 4 rebounds, and then 5 assists. So his points, rebounds, and assist prop that we have at 42.5, that might be a little bit too high because, like I said, only averages about 30, let's just say 40 points, rebounds, and assists. So that does seem to be a little bit too high. And I don't know if I agree with the projection data that much there. The projection data doesn't really echo per 36 production. But at the same time, I could kind of get behind betting the under there, especially in a lower scoring game. Now, that's just looking at last year's per 36 production. If we look at this year, and I don't really like looking at this year because it is going to be much more of a small sample, we're going to see, and he's played OKC, which is a great matchup. And that's probably why it's a little bit of a spike with OKC. But we look at his per 36 production this year, it is much better. 31.3 points, 7 rebounds, and 4.4 assists. But once again, that's partially due to this great matchup that he had against OKC. That's going to be a team that we're targeting a lot. And I do just want to call out some other players as well. Like Karis LeVert as well, he's going to get a bump regardless. He's not going to get a huge bump like he had last game with Donovan Mitchell out as well, most likely. But his per 36 production thus far this season is 22 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists. So we can see his points, rebounds, and assist prop should probably be set at like 30. Now, I do want to take a peek at last season as well because, we have a small sample size going to the day. It's early on. And last year, it was a little bit closer. He averaged 18 points per 36 and then about 5 assists and 4 rebounds. So about 27 points, rebounds, and assists. And so we just got to see where the lines come out here because, well, it is going to be an ugly game, remember. It's a low-scoring game. Then lastly, let's just talk about, Max Strus I'd be fine with. He has been someone that has been a little bit too hot shooting the basketball. I mean, last game, he not really. 4 for 9 from 3. We'll take that. 7 for 20. That's a lot of shot attempts, but that was also because Mitchell and Garland were out. We know that's not going to be the norm, but he has been shooting the basketball a lot, so definitely interesting there. Getting 10 3-ball attempts up is certainly interesting. I wonder what his 3-ball line will be. That'd be an interesting one if we get it, I'll say. I'm just frustrated that they're not giving us those lines yet. That's the tough part about NBA content, guys. It is. But I'll just give you guys his per 36 production this year because he wasn't on the team last year. So this season, it's a very small sample size. But he does have the most minutes with those two off the court, so maybe there's something there. Those minutes have been heavy, and I want to show you guys something here. I did add in this kind of feature. I mentioned I might do it yesterday. And so once Max Strus is active, what you do is you click on the player here, then you scroll down to kind of the bottom, and you guys will be able to see things like his average minutes once that's available throughout the season. A little bit too small, the sample size just yet, but you can see that his projected minutes. So Max Strus will be able to see his projected minutes, and then we can kind of just see the lines based off of the data that's available. And so we can kind of see if the line is correct or not. So just another way of looking at it. I think that's kind of sometimes important, especially with some of the props that we're getting. And then I also might toss in like the game lines there as well, just as an FYI. So Max Strus thus far this season, 15.6 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 4.3 assists. So almost 11 rebounds and assists for him, and about 15 points. Now, I don't think the points are going to continue to be there for him, but he is chucking up 3 balls, and he is averaging about 30 fantasy points per 36. So it's tough to say where the line should be on him. I would say I wouldn't maybe mind the points or the rebounds and assists. If we can get that at like 9.5, I might bet the over there. But now Evan Mobley. So in DFS, if you guys don't know, I cover NBA DFS as well, just like the DraftKings FanDuel side of it. I'm doing that on Occupy Fantasy's YouTube channel, doing a bunch of live streams there. So check that out. One player I kind of mentioned as a fade in the first game was Evan Mobley. He was very cheap, but extremely high owned. Didn't really exactly like the matchup against Brooklyn. Last 2 games, he's had really good matchups, and obviously with Donovan Mitchell out, he got a big bump in usage. Now I think we can expect him to just have another, pretty solid game. I'm not too worried about that matchup with New York. We look at his per 36 production thus far this season. It's been pretty good with Allen and Garland off the court. He's averaging 22 points, which obviously there's a little bit of spike there against Indy. So I think we can maybe, I'll show you guys last season's data on that. Averaging 13.4 rebounds and 2.8 assists. So maybe we are looking at rebounds for Evan Mobley, but let's take a peek at last season now. So last season, I think, is a little bit more true of what we can expect. 16.9 points for Evan Mobley per 36 with Jared Allen and Darius Garland off the court. 9 rebounds and 3 assists. He did average a block, almost 2 blocks, 1.9 blocks and 1.3 steals. So maybe there's something there for him. We could be looking at maybe blocks and steals at over 1.5 if it's there. That'd be a good about 40 fantasy points per 36 with both of those. And guys, I didn't even mention happy Halloween. What am I doing? Hopefully you guys have a good day today. If you have any kids or anything, enjoy that. And if you're the younger crowd as well, or I'll start with the younger crowd. The younger crowd, hopefully you had a good weekend. If you're a college student, hopefully you took advantage of that, had fun with that. If you're an older crowd, maybe grandkids as well, enjoy that as well. That'll be fun. But looking at it, this game, looking at the other side of the basketball, we got the New York Knicks here, and we are getting a little bit better props, I would say. So Jalen Brunson is certainly going to be an interesting one. And the reason why we are seeing kind of the unders being favored, I think, is the simple fact that this game is supposed to be a low scoring game. We look at the slate preview again, like this is not an appealing game. 213 points is just not a lot, or we can round up to 14, not a lot. And just for what it's worth, if you guys are someone that bets on multiple sites, Circa's very low compared to like DraftKings and FanDuel, and even we don't really use Fantics too much, but that's a low one there as well. Then we look at the Knicks, like we're not worried about any of their players bringing out. They're going to be playing a full allotment of minutes, and so the question really becomes, it's like, what do we think of this game really is what we should be trying to decide. Now, this could end up being a pretty good matchup for Jalen Brunson, especially if Mitchell's ruled out, but then the game just becomes a little bit uglier. And the Knicks, like in their last game, that was a very low scoring game. They did blow out Atlanta. Atlanta seems to be kind of a sweet spot for higher scoring games, and Atlanta's playing extremely well thus far. But we can see Brunson has struggled a little bit thus far this season to connect on a shot. Had a good game against Atlanta. The last game against the Pelicans, 4 for 14, so not exactly great there. And then also look at Boston, 6 for 21. And when we pull up his game log, we can see kind of close there. Like he was able to get there against Boston barely. And we'll see the reason as to why he had 3 steals. So the scoring's a little bit different compared to like PrizePicks and DraftKings. PrizePicks, you get 3 points for a steal, which is huge. I don't think we can always bank on that though, right? So I don't know. I'll trust the data for now. I'll trust the game. Not the most appealing prop though. And then continuing that, guys, it's like all the props that we're getting so far in this game are just telling us to bet the under, minus Julius Randle, where maybe the line's a little bit too low. Julius Randle could get an easy matchup, and I say could because Mitchell Robinson probably going to be paired up against Evan Mobley a little bit more. That doesn't really leave a strong defender with Jaron Allen out to guard Julius Randle. Now, anyone that's been playing NBA DFS or betting on NBA knows that Julius Randle can be pretty frustrating because he just makes some weird, strange plays. But all in all, I do kind of agree with this. I think this is going to be a good spot for him. And this is what I mean. Like, this is the frustrating part. Like, he can't have 8 turnovers again. Sloppy. But he had He's had over 10 points in every game and over 10 rebounds in every game. And the assists have been pretty high as well. The minutes have been heavy at 34. I'll see what his projected minutes here are, about 35. So yeah, I can get behind this line. The average sportsbook line would have it set at 37. The projection data has it at 38. So not a terrible prop there, but one that I would feel like we'd maybe be forcing in a little bit, but that's probably the best one that we're getting on the day. Then for what it's worth, let's talk about Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson has been playing well this far this season, and I think that comes down to two factors. He's been able to stay out of foul trouble thus far this season, and the minutes have been there, relatively speaking. You know, you look at the last two games, 38 against Atlanta. That was strange. That was weird. We don't expect that. And then 29 against the Pelicans. So if he is someone that can consistently get those minutes, then yes, we would like him a little bit more. But he's another one. I'll just click on his rebounds prop just for what it's worth so we can see his projected minutes. 31. So if he does get 31 minutes, he's going to do a lot better than what all the data is telling us. And like he would crush this over. Geez, I don't like seeing that he's projected to get 31 minutes because now that tells me, yeah, this is a crazy good spot, even though the game's ugly, even though Mobley could get him to foul trouble. I'm frustrated at that. I don't like that. Maybe that's a little bit of a game stack. Just those two bigs. Don't mind it. Don't love it. And then just for what it's worth, RJ Barrett. I know I'm spending a little bit too much time on this game, but RJ Barrett, he is a volume shooter. If he's hot shooting the basketball, going to have a good game. If he's cold shooting the basketball, obviously not going to have a good game. He's probably someone as a whole I want to stay away from on this slate. I would probably say he's due to have a bad game shooting. You know, if you like a low scoring game, as we saw, if you want to bet the under there, you could. But to me, that does seem like a 50-50. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game. So looking at the next game, we got the Spurs versus Suns. So one of the things that I mentioned yesterday is that I thought OKC would be a team that we're targeting a lot. Portland would be a team that we're Portland would be a team that we're targeting a lot. That's why I like OKC Thunder players for their overs. I also mentioned the Spurs. I think the Spurs will be a team that we target a bunch this season. And so the interesting thing about the Suns that we're going to see is that Bradley Beal's still out, and now Devin Booker, currently a game time decision. Right now, he's not expected to start. And so we have seen Eric Gordon start and then Jordan Goodwin come off the bench. And really the production has kind of been spread out between these three. So it's kind of tough to decide which one of those players is going to have a good game, but we'll go through the process there. So let's talk about Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant really went off against the Lakers, but I pointed out during that, the next slate video that he had 13 free throw attempts. That's not something you can typically bank on. And he did have 28 shot attempts, which was kind of strange. Now in the last game, he didn't need to get minutes because that game was a blowout. And there's a little bit of blowout risk with this game being a 7-point spread, but it is probably the most appealing game. And if it's going to be a blowout, I think KD will be part of the reason as to why. Last game, he did start to, he started out pretty slow and then picked it up in the second quarter as well. The first quarter was just a slow start for him. So it's kind of a weird sample size, but we'll look at the per 36 production with Booker and Mikal Bridges off the court because there's a bigger sample size than having Bradley Beal off the court. And for KD, that's not a big sample size either. But last year, he averaged 30 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. So his points, rebounds, and assist prop, in theory, should be set at about 42.5. Now, you give him a slight bump because of the matchup, sure, but this line is one that is seemingly tight. So I want to see what the data says. If it says it's under bet, maybe we roll with that. And I do love the stuff that PrizePicks does with their graphics. That's fun. So yeah, this one just basically seems like a push there for Kevin Durant. The projection data has it set about 44. I would say that's probably closer to right, but being correct, but this is one that we're probably just staying away from. We probably want to look at the secondary options in this matchup. And so one of those players could be Eric Gordon. So let's just remember Booker played the first game and then he sat out the last 2 games. So when I'm showing you guys Eric Gordon, you can kind of use that as a point of reference. We can see the shot attempts really have not changed though. Okay. And really the production hasn't changed at all. He is very much scoring dependent. It really just depends on how well he's shooting the basketball that night. To me, against the Spurs, he should be able to shoot the basketball a little bit better. And so we look at something like this, points and assists. Maybe this is not a bad one. Projection data doesn't exactly agree, but he's projected to get 31 minutes. And once again, this is very much dependent on how he's shooting the basketball. He could get there just by points alone. The issue that we have is the assists haven't exactly been there yet, which is kind of strange for a guy that's playing point guard. Now, part of the reason as to why is he's really not playing point guard too much. It's actually Jordan Goodwin who's playing point guard a lot. Now, Jordan Goodwin struggled shooting the basketball last game. 2 for 9. Didn't have exactly a lot of minutes in that game as well, but he had 5 assists. And maybe he's someone we could potentially be looking at for points, rebounds, and assists. Jordan Goodwin per 36 has averaged 5 assists. And so maybe that's something we're looking at if or when Booker gets ruled out. 7.7 rebounds and 15 points. So I kind of like him. He's coming in off the second unit, should be able to score against the Spurs second unit. For what it's worth, looking at Grayson Allen here, the best prop that we're getting on Grayson Allen is actually going to be under his 11.5 points. We take a look at his minutes projection, about 32. He has been someone that, yeah, we can typically trust to get minutes, but he has been thrust into more minutes this season or the last 2 games with Beal and with Devin Booker off the court. It makes sense. He's someone that's a kind of spot starter in the league, and he was able to get the points last game because he had a decent game shooting the basketball, 3 for 7 from 3, and that's kind of the thing I think we can expect from him, is for him to get a little bit more 3-ball attempts against the Spurs, who, like I said, I think that's going to be a matchup that we're targeting. So this line that's telling us to bet the under for his points, I probably am just going to stay away from, because I don't really agree with that, because I do see him getting about 3 balls made again. And do we have a 3-ball prop on Grayson Allen? Because maybe that's something we could look at. We do not. Jeez, super frustrating. 3 balls attempted, 6. That's probably got a strong likely to be a push. I don't mind that. We could be betting that one. And then lastly, just touching on Jusuf Nurkic, guys. Jusuf Nurkic is kind of been frustrating, but he does. I don't want to say it's a good matchup, because Victor Wembanyama has been someone that has played well. Zach Collins is a player I like. Zach Collins can get some steals as well. But Jusuf, the minutes have been sporadic. So I think we need to pay attention to the minutes, because the first game and the second game he got into foul trouble. And then the next game against Utah, I think he might have gotten into foul trouble again. And then they just didn't need him to play. So for him, we're going to see points or rebounds and assists. We should maybe be betting the under. The projection doesn't agree. And so we can see this slate is already kind of a sloppy one, where a lot of the props that we maybe would want to be on the projection data doesn't exactly agree with. He is projected to get 30 minutes, however. And so if he does get 30 minutes, then I do see him getting the over rebounds and assists. It's such a annoying slate so far, where data points are just not agreeing. And guys, I'm pulling in like the projection data and the projected minutes. I'm pulling that in from a bunch of different sources. And so that's like the average projection for both the minutes and the projected stat line. And so I don't know. I almost, and we are getting some more. I'll refresh this at the end of the video. I'll just refresh this now on my end so you guys can see the fantasy score. And so, yes, seemingly we are getting better props for fantasy score for the Suns. So Kevin Durant under 50.5 points. Part of the reason as to why I would say that is because while this game could blowout, we already saw that, and we look at his production, hasn't exactly been dominating in that regard. But yes, if he doesn't get over 50, it's going to be because this game blew out. And even in the game where he dominated against the Lakers, only 53 there. So I could see Ben the under. Now, it is a good matchup. One prop bet that just stood out when we were looking at it was actually Grayson Allen for over 20.5 for the fantasy score. This is one I don't mind. Once again, he's seemingly going to get a better matchup. It seems like he's kind of locked into 30 minutes regardless of how the game goes. And so that's not a terrible prop. I don't mind that one. I do want to take a peek at Josh Okogie, because that's at 21. He's been someone that's been pretty consistent, but that's the thing. It's like one of these guys, one of those 3 is going to struggle. And especially if we get some Jordan Goodwin props, I'd probably rather go in on that. So Eric Gordon at 24.5, probably staying away from that one as well. So yes, Grayson Allen over fantasy score, that's going to be one that I like. So now that we have some more props, let's go ahead and get into the Spurs side of the basketball. And I guess I'll show you guys Jusuf Nurkic first. So Nurkic, if he gets more minutes in this matchup, he should be able to get the over here. Just can't get in foul trouble. Do we really expect him to get in foul trouble against the Spurs? I don't. And so maybe there's a little bit of a game stack we can see here. Jusuf over fantasy score, Grayson Allen over fantasy score, Kevin Durant under, which doesn't correlate to, I guess it would. Could do that. All right, let's move on to the Spurs. So for the Spurs, it is worth noting that they are currently healthy. Okay, so we have seen this be their starting lineup. Jeremy Sohan, Devin Vassell, then Keldon Johnson, Webby. God, I hate the Spurs. They have so many difficult names. Webby there, and then you also have Zach Collins there. And the nice part about them is that they have been getting kind of the minutes you would think that they would be getting. Now, Wembanyama did get into foul trouble in the first game against Dallas, which was kind of strange. You don't expect Dallas to really get teams into foul trouble. But other than that, his minutes were there. Zach Collins, the frustrating point with the Spurs last year was we couldn't project minutes for them. It was so difficult because it was so sporadic. And like we saw with Detroit last night, like we don't know for sure what's going to happen with the minutes. Like Jalen Duren randomly not getting minutes was super strange, and he didn't even play poorly. That could happen with the Spurs. We do see the reason why Zach Collins didn't get minutes against the Clippers was because that game did blow out, and that game blew out fast. Like that game wasn't even close. So we do need them to keep it close enough for long enough. Zach Collins in that game did have 5 turnovers as well, but kind of negated it with he didn't get any steals or blocks, which is kind of strange for Zach Collins. And so I don't know if I agree with this, guys. I'm struggling with this actually. And I'm wondering what his projected minutes are. 33. I don't know. I don't see him missing by that much. And maybe Vegas is just factoring in a blowout, but the first 2 games he did get there. I don't like seeing that. I thought he'd be a good over bet. And then we are seeing Wembanyama as well be one where the under fantasy scores being one that we should potentially be targeting. And like Chet Holmgren, it kind of depends on like if he's getting blocks in this game. And so we look at it, he's gotten 1, 3, and 1, and then he also has gotten a bunch of steals as well. His fantasy score is very much dependent on that. I'm actually curious as to what his projected minutes are. 31. So, if the minutes are right here, I struggle to see both of these not hitting. But once again, there is a blowout fact. Then we see another one where the under is kind of being favored here as well. Now, Devin has been someone where the minutes have been there. That game was a blowout, still almost got 30 minutes. And so he is the one player that I feel like we should be safe on. So this is where I might be disagreeing with the data a little bit. This would probably be a better bet, I think, for over on one of those sports books that's giving us that line. And we look at fantasy score, we're actually seeing that one is slightly being favored at the over. The average Vegas line has it at 31.5. And so seemingly a small edge there. The issue that we have is he's not really getting any blocks or steals, which is something I typically like to look at for fantasy score prop. I do want to talk about Keldon Johnson and Sohan as well. So Keldon Johnson, he was someone that I was pretty high on at the start of the season. His role has kind of diminished a little bit. I still think he's probably currently their top player. He just struggled last game shooting the basketball 1 for 9, and maybe that's part of the reason as to why that game blew out. But he really hasn't had an awesome game like we saw from him really last season. He kind of carried this team at times last year. And so he has gained a little bit too many fouls, a little bit too many turnovers as well. But he is someone where if this game stays close, I think it's going to be because he's scoring. So if you guys want to make a correlated slip based off of that, you could. And then Sohan as well. Let's take a peek at his fantasy score. He was someone that I was pretty high on the first 2 games and even a little bit against the Clippers. Now, once again, we saw that game just blew out. Typically speaking, we don't want to project games to blow out. The issue that I have with him is the minutes really haven't been there. He's starting, but he hasn't gotten over 30 minutes thus far this season. And I want to take a peek at his projections. You can see his points, rebounds, and assists prop is pretty low, but he's projecting at 29 minutes, and that's the worry with him. And so the projection data is kind of reflecting that more, the lack of minutes. And 12 shot attempts is just not a lot as well. If you're betting on Sohan, you're probably betting on rebounds and assists in some capacity. So let's take a peek at those for him. Rebounds and assists, 9.5. I actually don't mind the over there. Rebounds, 5.5. That's okay. But I think I'd rather go rebounds and assists at 9.5. Still pretty tight, right? We don't need to make that bet. So we'll go ahead and move on into the next game. The last game is going to be the Magic versus the Clippers. Now, we do have a lot of actionable information here as well. The Clippers just traded for James Harden. And so with that being said, they're going to have a lot of players listed out. And I was actually surprised that they were able to keep Norman Powell as well. Very strange there. But yes, they got rid of a lot of players. Robert Covington being one of them that was getting a decent amount of run. Batum as well, where, not exactly getting a lot of run, but he's gone as well. And so definitely an interesting game when we're looking at that regard. The Magic are going to be good to go. They're healthy. They're kind of annoying as well with their rotation. So let's go ahead and talk about the Clippers. And so we see Kawhi Leonard for 23.5 for the points for an over bet that we could be making. And I actually don't think I mind that. We could do points, rebounds, and assists for Kawhi as well. I am not too worried about this matchup for Kawhi Leonard. The issue that we're seeing with him is that the last couple of games has not exactly been able to get there. Once again, though, that Spurs game was a blowout. We look at that Portland game, also a blowout. And then so their one close game against Utah, which was a high-scoring game, and this game is probably going to be the highest-scoring game on the slate. I don't mind it. And so matchup-wise, we do see there's a little bit of a 1 there. I'm not too worried about that. I don't think that's actually true. And so, yeah, that's one that I think I can get behind. And so let's just take a peek at what his per 36 production has been with Covington and Batum off the court. That's not going to shift much for sure, but maybe a little bit. No, it's not even worth looking at. Well, I'm going to look at last season. There was 10 minutes going into that sample. All right, so last season now, 10 rebounds and assists, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, averages the steal, and then averaged 24.3 points. So right there, we could see right on the line there. I think it's a little bit of a better matchup. So I do think he's going to be able to get the over there. And the data does agree. From there, Paul George under assists. I don't know if I want to touch that. We do see Russell Westbrook for points, rebounds, and assists at 27.5. A smaller line there. But Russell Westbrook was someone last game was able to take advantage of a pretty easy matchup as well against the Spurs. And so I just don't see Orlando being this elite matchup or elite defensive team. And the data doesn't exactly suggest that as well. So we could be making some prop bets based off of that. And let's say Norman Powell is out, then he does get a bump there as well. Probably will get a couple more minutes. Also got to include Terrence Mann. I forgot about that into these samples. And so for Westbrook, it's about the same, but he does average about 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists with all those players off the court. So it really just depends on his minutes. Once again, the one close game that they had, he kind of struggled in, to be honest, but he did have 37 minutes. So that was encouraging there. Then we also look at Paul George. Paul George is extremely consistent. This is another one where I'm kind of fine with, and the more I'm going through this might be the game that we want to potentially stack. And I think that might be the best route to go now. Zubac is currently questionable. I don't think that shifts the slate too much. I think we're just going to see Mason Plumlee gain more minutes. And then really we're probably just going to see a lot of Kawhi, a lot of Paul George, and just a lot of Westbrook. And I do expect Powell to play, so he's probably going to start. So now we shift up and we'll get into the Magic here. So the thing with the Magic is, and I'll show you guys kind of the minute spread here. Banchero, 35 minutes and then 30 minutes. Didn't love that. We looked at Wagner there as well. More minutes. You know, this game was a blowout. He's kind of been their best player thus far. Wendell Carter, he's someone where if he is going to be consistently getting these minutes, is certainly an intriguing play. Maybe 4 rebounds. And I'm actually curious, what is his rebounds at? Because that's something I might not mind. Rebounds for Carter, 8. That's probably 8.5. That's probably correct. All right, darn it. But you know, that's a guy where if he's getting more minutes, we don't like it or mind it. Markelle Fultz, very weird. The first 2 games, 25 minutes, okay. And then last game against the Lakers, 33 minutes. He's someone where if he is going to be getting over 30 minutes, he's going to be productive, especially assist-wise, rebounds-wise. Like, he'd be a good candidate for points, rebounds, and assists. And I'm actually curious where this is set at. And so looking at it for Markelle Fultz, the assist maybe is a little bit lower as compared to what Vegas is thinking at 5.5. The projection data doesn't like that, though. Minutes-wise, 32. So if he does get 32 minutes, I do think he's going to be able to get to at least 5 assists. Banchero for over 3.5 assists. You know, that's one of the better ones that we're getting. And that's I kind of like that. All right. So I think we got one there. I think we got one we can roll with. All right. I'm decently confident in that looking at the game log. All right. So that's why we go through this process like that, guys. That's seemingly a good one. From there, are there any other ones that are standing out? Not really. We're not getting any props for the secondary options like Cole Anthony or Suggs. Cole Anthony has really seen his minutes drop a little bit. He's not a bad player, though. Suggs as well. Like, pretty good, and that's part of the reason as to why, like Markelle Fultz, we can't always depend on his minutes, because if one of those two get hot, you might see their minutes extended. And then Gary Harris as well, he's getting a lot of minutes, and so that to me is where they are more difficult to predict. And then Joe Ingles as well, he's getting a little bit of run there as well, and so maybe that's why we've seen some of the production kind of fall off as a whole for this team. Center wise though, we're not seeing too many minutes go elsewhere. Like Jonathan Isaac's not getting a minute, so maybe Wendell Carter, somewhere looking at fantasy score wise, but Wagner has kind of been the player that's played well. He does get a more difficult matchup though tonight against Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And so real quickly, guys, let's go ahead and get into some other prop bets, and I'll show you guys the bet of the day. Looking at hitting fantasy score, we're not really getting any desirable ones at all today. You know, yesterday I kind of mentioned Corey Seager was one of the better prop bets that we had available on the day. We're not getting any pitching fantasy score props just yet as I'm recording this video. Now, it was annoying Max Scherzer got pulled early. That's kind of the worry with playoff baseball. That was the good prop yesterday, projection-wise. We take a peek at the current discrepancies that we are getting. Here is kind of a good one for aces, and this is one of those situations where if you're betting on underdog and prize picks, bet the over on prize picks, bet the under on underdog. The difference of 1.5 aces, that is a lot. We are seeing Chris Olave, Christian Watson. We're getting some pretty big differences there. Bijan Robinson, rushing yards, we're getting some pretty big differences there as well. Here's another aces prop where we're seeing a 1 ace difference. That's pretty good. I like those type of props. Let's go and take a peek at NHL. So NHL wise, guys, these are all basically being favored as pushes here. Again, just want to remind you guys that where the lines are different. Now, yesterday that didn't work out for us. We are getting one Ashton Matthews for under 4.5 shots on goal. It's a pretty good EV bet that we're getting, and that's really the best NHL bet that we are getting right now. And so that's one I'd be perfectly fine just pairing up with the tacos that we have if it's still available. The issue that we have is he is projected to get 5.3. That's just a kind of point of reference to me. One that's not terrible when using the projection is Trevor Moore. This has about a 53% chance to hit, so not terrible. And yeah, that's kind of it. So real quickly, we'll show you guys NFL and then college football, and then I'll give you guys the bet of the day. Nick Folk. All right, that's the best one that we have kicking points. Wow, ugly. All right, so I don't think we have much there. And guys, I was looking through it. I don't really think I see any props that like stand out even. So I personally feel like this will be the video that I touch on, later on in the week. Yeah, I don't really know if I want to touch any of these just yet. And then college football wise, I'm so frustrated that we're not getting better props for college football. It is what it is. Here's one that could be okay though. We got Cole Hardy under receiving yards. Projection data likes it at 25.3. We can see Underdog or PrizePicks has it a little bit higher than the rest of the field. That's 37.5. That's really the only slight edge that we have. Shucks, right? Okay, so as we went through this process, guys, we have seen it is an extremely tight slate. It's kind of unfortunate, but that kind of is what it is. So I'll show you guys my 5 favorite bets for the day. And once again, those are going to be to pair with the taco individually. And I say that because I want you guys to take advantage of the free promo code money that they're trying to throw at us. If you guys have a different strategy, that is fine. Just stick to that strategy. All right. So once again, the issue with NBA and really any props or any bet of the day is that typically speaking, these are going to be props that get bumped. And so my concern is that maybe a prop like Ashton Matthews that gets bumped down to 4. If it does, no need to force it. Same thing with the Kawhi Leonard prop. If that gets bumped, no need to force it. I'll show you guys some other options that we have on the slate as well. I am going with the data for these 2 fantasy score props. Now, the best fantasy score prop that we're actually seeing would be Zach Collins for under fantasy score. I'm struggling to get there, but if that's one you like, you can definitely play it. Now, here's one that I'm kind of struggling with again. I personally think Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson are going to be in for better spots. If Mitchell Robinson is going to get closer to 30 minutes or so, like the projection data is saying, to me, it's tough for me to see him not getting 24.5 fantasy score. Now, it'll be tight. It's a tight slate. Let's just make that clear. NHL wise, this is the next best prop that we have. This is one that maybe will get bumped throughout the day. Right now, it's seemingly going to be a safe prop, and that's what I'm trying to give you guys here. I'm trying to give you guys props that will be available throughout the day today. It is a tight slip. Probably just going to be betting on the tacos that are available today, and that might be it unless the data changes. And apologies there, guys. Like, obviously, I can't control the slate. It is what it is. Like, unfortunately speaking, gotta play the board, and the board is a tight board. It's telling us there's not that many great prop bets right now. That's gonna be all for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you guys want access to that cheat sheet to see if any prop bets are available throughout the day that update that are better prop bets, that's available in the link in the description below for just $10 a month. Give a like and subscribe. That's all I have for you guys. Let's have a good slate, and as always, let's keep cashing.